life that quietly or suddenly change everything. A diagnosis, a loss, a decision you didn't expect to make. And once that moment happens, the real question becomes, then what? Welcome to Change Happened, Then What? A storytelling podcast about the moments that shape us and the lives we build after them. Each episode brings you a real story told with honesty and care, where everything was questioned and where even then they chose to keep moving forward. This isn't an interview show. It's a place for real stories shared thoughtfully, sometimes messy, sometimes hopeful, but always human. I'm your host, Heather Holt, and I'm so glad you're here. Before we begin, I want to invite you into something I'm doing called the Changed Me Community Drawing. Stay tuned to the end of the episode to find out how you can enter into our monthly drawing for a super cozy Change Happened trucker hat or a super soft tee. Now, let's dive in. Before we start today's story, I want to give you a brief content note. In today's episode, we touch on different topics like childhood trauma, emotional and physical abuse, disordered eating, and the loss of a loved one to cancer. Please take care while listening, and as always, support and resources will be listed in the show notes. Now, let's dive in. Today's story begins with a little girl who experiences rejection, loss, lies, abandonment, and multiple forms of abuse, all before she ever graduates high school. What follows is chaos, survival mode, coping mechanisms that look like control but feel like unraveling, and then something shifts. Because this isn't just a story about what happened to her. It's a story about the moment she finds the courage to question everything she was taught to accept. And now, she slowly turns her pain into a pathway that helps others heal.
My abuse started as far back as I can remember. So, as far back as I can remember would be 4 years old, and it may have started before that. And it was started with my brother. My brother was adopted, and he was 7 years older than me. The problem with my brother is he was physically and verbally abusive with me. And then when he was a young teenager, and I'm talking like 13 years old, he began to do drugs. And so what that did is it escalated the abuse in the home. So at a very young age, at 6, 7 years old, I'm dealing with a brother who is verbally and physically and emotionally abusive and also on drugs. He would be fine one minute and he would turn the next. And when he turned, that's when it was scary. And he could be mad for a word that came out of my mouth. I just never knew when that darkness would come. For years, it was him verbally abusing me, coming in my room and physically abusing me. He was actually calling me names. For example, when I was about 11 years old, is when he told me that nobody loved me, nobody liked me, all of mom and dad's friends hate me. That is the day that I got the belief that nobody loved me, nobody liked me.
Nobody loves me, nobody likes me. That is not a thought a 7-year-old should carry. At 7 or 8 years old, a child's brain is still under construction. The prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for reasoning, perspective, and emotional regulation, is nowhere near fully developed. A child that age doesn't have the capacity to filter information the way an adult does. They can't step back and say, "This isn't about me." Instead, their brain absorbs. Neural pathways are forming rapidly during these years, Beliefs get wired in early, especially the ones repeated in moments of fear or shame. When messages of rejection or harm are introduced at that stage, they don't just hurt, they imprint. It can feel almost cellular, as if it becomes part of the child's internal blueprint. And when that harm comes from someone who is supposed to be family, someone who shares your last name and your home, the confusion compounds. What you're about to hear is Lisa sharing some of the physical abuse she endured at the hands of her brother. If hearing specific descriptions of physical abuse feels like too much right now, this is your moment to pause or skip ahead to the next chapter. Taking care of yourself is not avoidance, it's awareness.
The physical abuse, he literally would hit me. Well, I was probably 8 years old. One time I had my little girlfriend over. She stayed the night, and we were in my room, and we were playing. And he came in the room, and I don't remember what he said, because a lot of times it didn't make sense when he would say stuff. And I guess he didn't like my response, and so he would smack my leg. You know, it left a handprint. There was another time when we had a German Shepherd, and it was supposedly his dog, but he didn't take care of him. Charlie came in my room, and he had hip problems, and so when he turned the corner, he yiped a little bit. My brother came charging in my room, asking me what the hell I did to the dog. And before I could say anything, he had a set of keys in his hand, and he threw the keys at my head and missed me by literally an inch or so and broke the window behind me.
These are two very specific events that imprinted heavily on Lisa. She told me other stories like this, and she never knew when it was going to happen. But he threw a set of keys hard enough to shatter the window behind her. And you can't help but wonder, what if he was a better shot and missed the window and hit her instead? That wasn't a sibling scuffle. That was intention. Lisa tells me she can never really remember a time where they got along as siblings or where he wasn't threatening her in some way.
That time frame that I was talking about, 11 years old, when he started sharing that nobody loved me, nobody liked me, is when I began to put on weight. My mother loved to dress me up. She loved every holiday, every time I would start school. She loved buying me clothes, and she loved dressing me up. And so that was really important to her. I was emotionally eating, and nobody was telling me not to do it. I didn't realize what I was doing. I had no idea. I was about 13 when my mother told me that I was putting on weight. She was really upset, to the point that she finally told me that she would no longer buy me any clothes until I lost the weight. And I can remember sitting there thinking, I don't even know how I'm putting this weight on. I don't even know how to take it off. Like, I don't understand what's going on here. You know, gave me no guidance. And she stuck to her gun. My dad finally got mad when I only had a couple pieces of clothing left to wear. And so he took me out shopping.
13, it's one of the most imprintable ages in a person's life. At 13, the brain is in the middle of a massive remodel. The limbic system, the emotional center, is firing on all cylinders. Feelings are heightened, social awareness is amplified. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, the part that helps with logic, regulation, and long-term perspective, is still years away from maturity. So, what does that mean? It means experiences don't just register, they embed. Body image at 13 isn't just about appearance. It becomes identity, belonging, safety, and control. When weight shifts at that age, especially in an already unstable environment, food can quietly become something else, a coping tool, a shield, a form of rebellion, or the only thing that feels within reach when everything else feels unpredictable. Moments like this can scar, not because of the pounds themselves, but because of what they attach to emotionally. And for Lisa, this wasn't happening in isolation. This was also the age she began to recognize something else, something that shifted the power dynamic in her home. Up until that point, she had believed she was the only one afraid of her brother. But then she saw it. Her parents were afraid too. And when a 13-year-old realizes the adults in the room aren't in control, that realization changes everything. We'll be right back. Today's Change Happen story is sponsored by Pure Energy Apothecary. Owner Don Lancaster and I are friends, and honestly, that matters. It's how I know how much care goes into what she makes. Dawn doesn't create products just to sell them. She makes them because she uses them and cares about how they support real people like you. Her magnesium butter has become a staple in my daily life when my muscles feel tired, when my legs won't settle at night, or when my nervous system feels like it's been running on overdrive, which, let's be honest, a lot of us can relate to. Magnesium supports muscle relaxation, helps with sleep, and eases that wired but tired feeling. This butter is creamy and absorbs right into the skin. No heaviness, no overpowering scent, just comfort. For me, it's not just relief. It's a small ritual that tells my body it's safe to slow down. If you're craving that kind of support, visit pureenergyvt.com and use code PURECHANGE to get your 20% off. Now, back to Lisa's story.
The power in the house also changed because at that time, my brother was bigger than my dad. There was a time my dad was going to punish my brother, and he came in with the paddle because he was going to paddle my brother. And I literally saw my brother take the paddle right out of his hands and tell him, no, you're not going to hit me anymore. What that did with my dad is he would hide. There was a time when my brother and my mother were in a big screaming match, and she yelled at me to go get my dad. I couldn't find him. I finally found him in the bedroom hiding. That was very confusing. I really, at the time, did not understand what was going on. And it was also around that time when I got the belief that nobody's going to protect me.
I think I would have been just as confused at that age. But here you are looking at two people who are supposed to protect you, and they aren't even willing to protect themselves or each other. Lisa shared one more story with me about a time when there were other adults present with her parents, when her brother didn't like Lisa ignoring him, and she was attacked by him, sat on and choked in front of 4 adults, and nothing was done about it. So now you have a teenage girl who thinks no one likes her, no one will protect her, and no one loves her. And all of these moments are shaping the story she is quietly telling herself about who she is and what she deserves.
And then when I was about 14, my mom found out she had breast cancer. I found out by one of her friends picking me up in high school to tell me on the way home from school that she had breast cancer. It was 2 years of her going through chemotherapy and radiation. I didn't know she was that sick. My parents lied to me and were not honest with me that she was actually dying. I would come home from school. I would go to the grocery store. I was helping giving her shots of morphine for her pain. I actually confronted my dad and said, what's going on with mom? She's home from work more. We're helping her more. What's going on? And he just said he didn't know, and he started crying, and he said he didn't know for sure, which was a lie. And one of the things my mother told me, very short window, where she was in remission. And she said, well, if I get cancer again, that's it. So that's sticking in my head. So fast forward to this day that I'm confronting my father. I was angry. I didn't understand, and nobody was answering my questions. Sure enough, within a few months, she died. And how I found out she was actually dying was she was rushed to the hospital, and I got up there after school. The doctor was in her room. He walks out. He says, I don't know if she'll make it through the night, maybe 3 days, and walked away. And so that's how I got to find out my mom was dying of cancer. And she passed 3 days later. After that, my dad just completely shut down.
It's common for adults to believe they're protecting children by softening the truth. And when a child is very young, sometimes that instinct makes sense. But Lisa isn't 7 anymore. She's a teenager. At this point, her brain is capable of understanding reality. Adolescents can comprehend illness. They can grasp mortality. What they struggle with isn't truth. It's uncertainty. And when the truth keeps shifting, when answers feel partial, vague, or inconsistent, the nervous system stays on high alert. When you grow up in an environment where information isn't reliable, you start to question everything. Is this real? Is this true? Am I crazy for feeling this way? So when her mother is sick and then dying, the story around it feels filtered and incomplete. Lisa is left in an emotional freefall, grieving while also trying to decode what's real. And that kind of confusion doesn't just hurt, it destabilizes a person.
He was not ready or willing to take care of a teenager. and even came to me and said, I really can't afford to take care of you. You're going to have to quit school and go get a job, which was not true. That was not true. He was not willing to take care of me.
At 16, her mother is gone. Her father is distant, detached, communicating directly or indirectly that he doesn't want her there. 16 is an age where identity is forming rapidly, where belonging matters deeply, where approval from caregivers still carries enormous weight. And instead of reassurance, she receives confirmation of her worst fear. She's not wanted, she's not chosen, she's not loved. Her mother is gone, her father feels unavailable and untruthful, her brother, even as they grow older, continues to hit her. The abuse doesn't magically stop because they age, and when violence continues into adolescence, it reinforces a dangerous message. This is normal. This is what I deserve.
And so the last time my brother hit me was when I was about 17. After he smacked me across the face, I left the house. I went over to my boyfriend's house. I waited a couple hours. I called my dad, and my dad was mad at me. He was mad that I left the house because my brother proceeded to go off on my dad about me. I just told my dad at that point, once I turn 18, if he ever touches me again, I will call the police, and you can pass that message along.
17. The last time her brother lays a hand on her. And even in that moment, Lisa knows something else. She knows she cannot count on her father to protect her. She believes she has to wait until she's 18 to go to the police. Old enough to stand on her own, old enough to act without permission, old enough to not need anyone's support, because she already knows she won't receive it. And when a young woman grows up without safety, without consistent truth, without protection, she doesn't stop needing those things. She just goes looking for them elsewhere. So now Lisa sets out on a new journey. Trauma in hand, wounds unprocessed, belief about herself that have been reinforced for years. And beneath it all, one driving need: to find a man who would love her. Because when you've been told long enough that you're not wanted, the longing to be chosen can become overwhelming.
I didn't feel like anybody loved me. And so I was on a journey to find that man that was going to love me. And that was my first husband. I don't say anything bad about him. What I say about us is we were just two hot messes that kind of came together and tried to create a life together. And we tried for 30 years. So we gave it a good try. It was a struggle. We fought a lot. There was a lot of strife. I even considered not having a child when I was a teenager because I was aware that I was abused, and I was also aware of the fact that childhood abuse can be, passed on. And so I was very concerned about that. But God blessed me with one boy. I was very committed to him, and I did not abuse him. But what we did do in all those years that we were together is our son was raised in a home where we screamed at each other. We fought. Mom was full on into survival mode. It didn't take much for me to kind of just, flip, be triggered or be upset.
For nearly 30 years, she remains in a relationship that isn't violent, but it isn't healthy either. Because here's what unresolved trauma does. When trauma isn't processed, it doesn't disappear. It adapts. It reshapes itself. It shows up in patterns, often without us realizing it. Our nervous system gets used to a certain level of intensity. If we grow up in chaos, calm can feel unfamiliar. If we grow up fighting for safety, the body can mistake conflict for connection. So even when we consistently try to choose differently, our systems sometimes pull us back toward what feels known. Control becomes a strategy. Hyper-awareness becomes protection. Fighting becomes familiar. And none of this happens because someone is broken. It happens because the brain and the body learned early how to survive. Lisa is trying not to repeat what she endured, trying not to pass the pain forward to her only child. But when trauma lives in the background unaddressed, it leaks. Not intentionally, not maliciously, just quietly. And that realization that some of what she worked so hard not to repeat still found its way through. This part becomes another turning point for Lisa. because awareness is where patterns begin to loosen.
On my own during this time, I just looked for whatever I could. And one of the things that I did, I participated in a women's childhood abuse healing workshop. And it was during that time that I recognized that I had forgiven my brother for what he had done. It wasn't until then that I saw my parents' abuse. I didn't like my mom. I loved her, but I didn't like her because she was mean. But I didn't realize it was abuse. And so it was during the time that I did this workshop that I recognized their part in this.
Before this moment, Lisa has already said something powerful. She had forgiven her brother. She loves her mother, but she didn't like her because she was mean to her. That's a complexity of healing, love and truth sitting side by side. For nearly half of her life, Lisa has believed the home she grew up in was normal. Painful, yes, but normal. You don't question the air you breathe when you've never known different, until she walks into a workshop for adult women who were abused as children. For the first time, she hears language that fits her story. Not just the abuse, but the enabling. She realizes her brother was responsible for the harm, but her parents, in their fear and silence, allowed it to continue. And in the middle of doing this work, her father dies unexpectedly. The conversation she had hoped to have, the accountability, the acknowledgement, the closure, it never comes. She had tried before, tried to talk about it with him, but he would ignore her, shut down, and refuse. So now she is left holding two things, truth and grief. No resolution, no final answers, just clarity. And sometimes that clarity has to be enough to begin healing. But healing didn't stop there. A couple years later, the organizer of the same workshop reaches out to Lisa and wonders if she would consider taking it over. Lisa enthusiastically says yes. And for 8 years, she holds space for other women walking through what she once walked through alone. Anyone who's done deep internal work knows this truth. The more you heal, the more you see. Layers surface, patterns become clearer, tolerance shifts, and somewhere in that continued growth, Lisa begins to recognize something else. Her marriage, nearly 30 years long, isn't abusive, but it's at a stalemate, two people no longer moving in the same direction. And when you spent years untangling old patterns, you can't unknow what you now know. So she makes a decision that feels both devastating and necessary, and asks for a divorce. Uncoupling after 3 decades is not small. It's grief in its own right. It's shared history. It's redefining who you are without the structure you've leaned on for half your life. But for Lisa, it was alignment. Things needed to change. And yet, even after all of this work, even after choosing herself in this new way, the longing to be loved doesn't disappear. So when the divorce is finalized, Lisa finds herself chasing love again. And it wasn't long after the divorce that she entered into her second marriage.
I still had that deep belief in me. Oh, I got to find that guy that loves me, because when I'm by myself, I don't have any value. So I have to have a man that values me. I immediately went out and found another man. I did. Even though at the time my gut told me not to talk to him, not to date him, not to marry him, I went against all of that. And I went ahead and married him. And it was immediately after I married him and moved into his home that the mask came off. And I saw that I had married a full-on narcissist. The thing with me, I had done enough healing to realize that this crazy stuff that he was doing, I wanted no part of. I had had enough in my last marriage with all the chaos. I saw this. I was done. We were married about a year, maybe not quite a year, and I realized I made a big mistake.
Lisa tells me she had a plan, a quiet, steady plan. Pack a bag, rent a room, ask for nothing, just have him sign the divorce papers, and begin again. She was ready to start over, but life rarely moves in straight lines. Her husband had a non-aggressive form of cancer, but around the same time that she was shifting, it shifted into an aggressive cancer. And suddenly, there was a 50% chance that he would even survive. In that moment, Lisa made a choice. She stayed. Not because the marriage was healthy, not because patterns disappeared, but because she felt it was the right thing to do. To see him through treatment, to get him to the other side, and then follow through with her plan. Only, he didn't make it to the other side. He passed not long after. And that loss carries a whole different kind of weight. Grief mixed with unfinished business, compassion tangled with relief, love complicated by truth. There was no clean ending. So instead of running outward again, Lisa turned inward this time. She dove deeper into herself, deeper into her healing, because what she knows now is this. She does want a partner in her life, but she wants him there for the right reasons. Not to fill a void, not to prove she's lovable, and not to escape being alone, but to stand by her as an equal. Before we continue, I want to share something close to my heart. Dear Sweet One Lullabies. It's a custom lullaby made just for your child. Using their name, birth date, and whether they were born under the sun or moon, each story becomes a gentle audio keepsake filled with warmth and wonder, perfect for bedtime or just because. You can find Dear Sweet One on Etsy or at changehappenedpodcast.com. Now back to Lisa's story.
At this time, I'm finding trauma therapy. I'm reading some books because now there's stuff out. So I start doing some deep therapy, and I start looking within myself and going, okay, I don't want to do this again. I wanted to be married. I did. But I only wanted to be married if it was going to be the right man and the right situation. And so I had to really look within myself. And so I did a lot of work. I met my third husband, but we took it really slow. And it was touch and go for a little bit. I even at one point had to break up with him because I didn't like the way things are going. And that was big for me because I didn't break up with guys, right? I didn't do that. I needed to have this man by my side. And I deeply loved him. But the really cool thing is we worked it out. And the most beautiful thing that has come from it is this man has helped me in so many ways in my life and in so many ways in my healing, including getting my voice back. Because I didn't realize until it was about 2016, and he and I were in the car and we're driving along, having a normal conversation, and I turned to him to say something, and the words would not come out of my mouth. And he looked at me and he said, "Say it." And I said, "It won't come out. It literally will not come out. It's stuck in my throat." And it was at that moment that I realized that was a kind of a normal thing that happened to me, but I hadn't been really aware of it. He said, "Well, let's just take some time and figure it out." And he gave me the safe space to finally, slowly trust him.
And then something different. Lisa finally finds her voice, supported by the man who now is her third husband. What she describes isn't intensity, it's safety. Mutual trust, emotional steadiness, a relationship where she doesn't feel like she's fighting to be heard. And because she feels safe, she feels free. Free to explore the deeper layers of trauma she never felt secure enough to touch before. Healing doesn't happen in isolation. Sometimes it happens in the presence of someone who stays. Lisa also shares that she no longer has a relationship with her brother, and she's made peace with that. And peace doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it just means release. Today, all of the work that Lisa does centers around becoming the resource she once needed. She hosts her own podcast, Healing and Growing Hand in Hand, which is, I can say firsthand, a fantastic listen. She leads workshops that create safe spaces for people to take their next steps. Every link to her work is in the show notes and a Change Happened podcast under Season 2 guests. If you or someone you love could benefit from what Lisa offers, please share this with them. As we wrapped up our conversation, I asked her one of my favorite questions. What makes you smile today?
How my life is today. It's better than I ever imagined. It's just because I've done the work.
When you spend more than half your life believing it would always feel like a pile of nothing, and then you do the work and you begin to see your life as a gift, Of course, that's what brings her joy. So I asked her to leave you with one piece of wisdom, and this is what she shares.
If you have trauma, childhood abuse or past trauma, the first thing I would tell you is always get into trauma therapy. That is so important on your healing journey. There are so many great modalities out there that help us work this trauma out of our mind and out of our bodies, and we need that special therapy in order to get this trauma out of our system. Regular talk therapy has its place, but not when it comes to trauma.
One thing I've heard consistently from people who have done deep trauma work is this: talk therapy alone isn't always enough for complex, deeply rooted trauma. Sometimes trauma-informed therapists help regulate the nervous system first, so that talk therapy can actually be effective. There are many different modalities because healing isn't a one-size-fits-all. Some examples include EMDR, which Lisa shared with me she was the most responsive to, somatic experiencing, internal family systems, or IFS, trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, brain spotting, and neurofeedback. And often finding the right therapist takes more than one try. If the first one doesn't feel like a fit, that doesn't mean therapy didn't work. It just means you haven't found your person yet. Healing is personal, and there are many paths forward. If you or someone you love could benefit from learning more, please check out Lisa's links in the show notes or head to changehappenedpodcast.com. Because your story isn't over, and neither is your healing. Change doesn't end the story. It's often where the next chapter begins. If something in today's episode stayed with you, a moment, a sentence, a feeling, I'd love to hear about it. And if someone came to mind while you were listening, consider sharing this episode with them. You're welcome to head to changehappenedpodcast.com to tell us what stayed with you from today's episode or any interview episode you listened to as part of the What Changed Me community drawing. Each time you share, you'll be entered into a Change Happened drawing. You can enter more than once. Every entry is also automatically included into our quarterly drawing for a special Change Happened Super Prize, whether you've won before or not, because these stories don't end where the episode does. They keep moving forward in what we carry with us and in who we pass them on to. Change Happened, Then What? Is written, edited, and produced by me, Heather Holt, with the loyal background support from my two sidekicks, Waylon and Dalton. Until next time, keep smiling and maybe let your dog inspire your next big idea.
There's always a reason to always choose joy. There's something deeper that the world can't destroy. Smile when you think you can't. Smile, get up and dance. Smile, there's a bigger plan. The storm only lasts for a while. So smile.